question.
Sure.
The Youth Baseball Academy, Cal Ripken, whatever it's going to be called, is that guaranteed? Because when I talked to them, I asked them that question. They said, well, we're going to exercise our best efforts to try to get it here.
But they...
It's not. Is it guaranteed, though, or not? Is that going to be part of the deal?
What they represented to us was that it is common for them to affiliate a youth baseball academy with their facilities, minor and major league, and they have an expectation that that would occur, but there's no guarantee on any of this.
There's no commitment to any of this.
Right, but I mean, that's important because you're using the numbers from that $10 or $15 million in their economic impact analysis.
And one of the real attractions for this whole thing is the youth baseball commitment. And I'm not sure I care whether it's the Orioles or whether it's Cal Ripken. I really believe that spring training, for the most part, being at the most intense tourist part of the year, if you didn't have a team, you could make up for that with advertising and might not even have to. But to have these ancillary things are what would make it worth it. And I say that having been sold on that from, 2 years of hearing people talk on this stuff, including people from the tourist industry who came to the last TDC meeting and said, it's not the spring training, that doesn't do anything for us, it's the shoulder season activities that are here. So, anything we do, as far as I'm concerned, for this much money, you got to have some kind of lock on what was waved in front of us.
I'm with Commissioner Patterson. I don't really care about spring training. I think it's a wash at best. The money really is in all these other events, because when you bring these youth teams, they clearly are here for that event and virtually that event only. I believe to this day that spring training, people go to spring training games just because it's convenient. It's a great thing to do while you're enjoying the opera and the beaches.
It would have been very easy for us to come to you with a proposal that contained just that piece. And we would have trumpeted the fact that we created and generated a very large and significant annual economic impact at that level of $30 or $35 million. But we felt that we could revitalize and revise and build upon the traditional spring training model such that we could contribute even more to the community. That is why we included such elements as the Cal Ripken Jr. Youth Academy. That is why we included such elements as the multimedia marketing partnership. The Cal Ripken Youth Academy has been much talked about. Cal's a wonderful person. He was a wonderful player. He has enjoyed, and we have enjoyed, a long relationship with him, with his operations, and with his foundations. And it was our pleasure to be able to talk with Cal and then talk with all of you about that, adding that component. It is really a uniquely valuable component that joins with the unique value that every major league club, including the Orioles, brings. I won't get into the details of the CSL study. I leave that to the Chamber and to all of you, but certainly it suffices to say that the independent consultant looked very hard at both of those elements and recognized a tremendous value.
The data that you find before you is data that was conducted by another independent survey that was presented by the Cal Ripken Enterprises and the Foundation to a county in Maryland called Harford County, and a city much like Sarasota, Aberdeen, Maryland. The reason they presented this data, and the data was presented under oath in the same fashion as presented here, is that they had to justify the bonds that were floated by Harford County to build their facilities. And the data which you see before you here, the data which was conducted by a similar consulting firm to CSL, I believe under the auspices of the University of Delaware, showed that in 2006, 762 teams played during that summer. Those players were, and pardon the age group here, was actually 12 and 13-year-olds, but they averaged 13 players per team, which is 9,906 players. The data showed, and this is it's verifiable data, approximately 3 visitors per player, because ordinarily when a youngster goes to a camp or goes and plays in a week-long tournament, they come accompanied by a parent or a guardian. They come with someone else, and when they play in a Cal Ripken tournament, everybody wants to be there. They want to be there when Cal takes the photographs at the end of the tournament. They want to shake his hand. And believe it or not, everybody becomes a kid. Everybody enjoys being there, and it does drive tourism, and it does drive participation. And the numbers, the verifiable numbers for Aberdeen, Maryland, which is a shorter season, a smaller community, not nearly the attributes of this terrific area in the Sarasota community, were 29,718 players. Now that's short season, shorter season. It's only one age group. The unique element of what Mr. Angelos talked about in reinventing spring training is that because of the availability of fields, unlike Aberdeen, Maryland, where there are only youth fields, remember now the only 70-foot diamonds in Aberdeen, Maryland, and there are only 5 of them. In the proposal before you, there are 6 youth fields and 7 90-foot diamonds. Now, what does that mean? That means that not only can you have tournaments for the younger age groups, but simultaneously you can run tournaments for the 14, 15-year-olds on the 90-foot diamonds, or the 16, 17-year-olds, or the 18 and unlimited, and they are very significant tournaments. Personal experience. My son played in the AAU Nationals at 16 years of age in Jupiter, Florida. There were dozens and dozens of teams there because they had the facilities to house the Junior Olympics. Same with the AAU, same with National Association of Baseball. The upper division tournaments are as vibrant as the youth tournaments. And what Cal said when he visited the facility, and rightly so, is if we can put together the youth fields and the 90-foot diamonds together, we're talking about something the magnitude of much more than just 2 times what Aberdeen can do in a shorter season. Not only do you have a longer season here, but you've also got holiday tournaments, a longer buffer. I think these numbers, frankly, are conservative. We suggested to CSL that they were conservative, but frankly, we're very comfortable with them, and I think they will be not only verified but come true.
Just to follow up, I do have a copy of the Hartford study, and that's why I was concerned, because it's been in existence for about 5 years, Aberdeen, and their attendance was 35,000 in 2006. That's according to the study, and we're looking at 30,000 more than that.
I think,
and that's a big number, and that's my concern.
It is a very legitimate question, but the facilities are so dramatically different and more that when you have not just youth games and youth tournaments and youth camps, but couple them with the...
My name is Captain Wayne Gunther. I have signed a card. I want to speak on relationship building, because that's pretty much what's on the table here. Partnering, Orioles, and what they say they bring to the table, and what we have. And before you create a relationship, you have to start with trust and respect. Trust and respect. And from what I understand, most of the economics on what the Orioles claim that they can do for us is based on a study which I think is flawed. I think the CSL study is flawed. I think they know it. I think expecting CSL to offer you an objective economic analysis of the benefit of any sports stadium to any community is like expecting flies to stay out of a horse barn. It's just not going to happen. And they need sports. They need it to survive. So I don't know if there's ever been a time when CSL said, bad idea, you should not build this stadium. That is one concern I have, that we are creating a relationship that has poor footing, poor grounding, because I don't.
And I hope, Cal Ripken wants to come down here, but I don't think that needs to be part of this deal. I think that's I shouldn't use the word tainted, but it's clouded the deal and made the numbers inflated.
I had forgotten, but I had made a note to myself, if we did go 0.75%, to make it contingent on roping in the Cal Ripken deal and the advertising.
I think Dave said that. He was going to tell you.
Yeah.
If you could please address the issue of the county charter and the bonding limitations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To start off with, let's talk about the fact that the proposed transaction, if approved, would include the county approving TDT taxes and the city issuing its bonds and owning the stadium. Now, in order to apply the charter, which is, there's a relevant provision in 5.2D of the Sarasota County Charter. That provision talks about Sarasota County or any subdivision or instrumentality thereof shall not issue or cause to be issued without referendum any notes, bonds, certificates of participation, or other instruments of indebtedness evidencing borrowing, obligating the county to pay off said indebtedness out of the tax revenues of the county unless the principal amount is less than $17 million adjusted for CPI. So if I could break that down real quickly, it talks about a borrowing, and it also talks about a pledge, because the words pay off out of tax revenues is synonymous with pledge. Well, there will be a borrowing if this transaction goes forward. It will be a city borrowing. And the city will, as I understand, agree to pay its borrowing off using legally available non-ad valorem revenues. There will be no pledge of the TDT revenues. And in fact, the TDT revenues will not be mentioned in the city's bond issuance. The bondholder's sole right to receive payment on the borrowing will be through the city's payment from its legally available non-ad valorem revenues. The county is not a borrower. It does not receive a corpus of money, doesn't build a project. It's simply allocating revenues, which it is permitted to do under Florida law and the TDT statute, for a lawful purpose, which is a stadium. The county already does this. It does this as to TDT revenues and the town of Longboat Key for a term of years. That does not constitute a borrowing or a pledge of county revenues. And lastly, I'd say the city is neither a subdivision or an instrumentality of the county. The city, as you all know well, is independent of the county and makes its own decisions, and in that respect is not under the control of Sarasota County. So it is my opinion that the Sarasota County Charter provision, which requires referendum approval to the issuance of evidences of indebtedness for borrowings, does not apply to this transaction.
The economic analysis that's being used in consultant reports would not get the endorsement of any PhD in economics. And it's disturbing as a citizen to see this kind of data being used to justify such a massive public expenditure. It simply doesn't hold up to scrutiny. As a citizen, I would say to Mr. Angelos that the greatest value his organization could provide to our community is ponying up for their own facility. I mean, they want us to pay for their facility. They can well afford to pay for their own. All right, and the last issue, and the other thing is this isn't a one-time investment. This is a 30-year bond debt that's being asked. So I wholly disagree with the characterization that this is a one-time investment. It's not. It's 30 years. The last point, if you'd let me continue. These are signatures of 660 residents of the county of Sarasota who want a referendum on this issue. There's 300 signatures online. It represents about 35 hours of volunteer work. That's a lot of signatures in a short amount of time. I don't agree with Mr. Marsh's characterization of the county 5.D at all. The intent of that legislation is to limit the ability of this body to obligate the county to debt in excess of $20 million. I believe an interlocal agreement falls under that statute. This is not respecting the spirit of our charter, and you all are elected to operate within the charter. And I would ask you to take that seriously and do so.
Okay, thank you very much.